Welcome, gentlemen, to the Champions Way podcast, helping men live the life of a champion in all aspects of life: personal, physical, professional, and financial. Today, it is a humbling honor to have the man, the myth, the legend, a good friend of mine, uh, Clinton Mansfield. Clinton, dude, super pumped to have you here, man.
Hey man, I appreciate you letting me be on your podcast. I mean, I've been watching it, all the episodes so far, man. What you're doing, it's incredible, really. It is the champion's way. It is the way that everybody needs to be. So I'm honored that you even thought about me. So thank you so much for having me on your podcast.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. For those that don't know, Clinton, I would always I describe you as probably the most detailed and hardworking person I think I've ever worked with. You're to the T on everything. All T's are crossed, I's are dotted. So it's excited to have you on here. And so tell us a little about yourself. I'll give you the floor. Give us your background. What you specialize in. Let's go from there, man. Let's have some fun. Let's provide some.
Yeah,
Fun.
absolutely. So, hard work and detail oriented was something that I grew up with, and it wasn't always good. It was sometimes highly critical. From my upbringing to a hardworking, farm type community that I came from. We were a very, small town, one stoplight, no restaurants type of hometown. Very big farming community. So
Wow.
being surrounded with these hardworking individuals really just kind of shaped that part of my work ethic. So I got to give credit where credit is due. I was mentored by these people that were hardworking individuals. So that's really kind of, where I come from and where that all started. Now, I did have an excitement for physical body. I was always very inquisitive of the physical body. I was a fat kid growing up. So I, ate crappy food, in the 80s and 90s, eating Swiss cake rolls and oatmeal cream pies. And, my parents were divorced. So it was kind of a free for all. We got to eat
Yeah.
popsicles for lunch. And, it was, pretty crazy growing up. So immediately there was all sorts of pain. Right. And pain meaning that I remember going to church camp one day and everybody was really kind of getting either a 1 or a 2 on their wrist for if they could swim. You got a number 1 if you're good in the deep water, and you got a number
Hmm.
2 if you sucked, right? If they're like, no, you just stay on this side of the dock, you're up to your waist in water, you're not going to drown. But I remember feeling uncomfortable in my own skin, Sam. I remember being a chubby kid to where girls were entering my life now, and I was interested in impressing them, but I had a physical body that I was not satisfied with, right? So I would wear shirts to swim. I was that guy, because I was embarrassed. So instantly I remember a traumatic amount, right? A traumatic amount of stress and pain. And what
This is
that
this is pre-trophy generation stuff. This is where
yeah, this
character is
is
built from.
Yeah, this is, I mean, I remember going back home and I remember just crying at night, like, oh my God, like, this sucks. I'm never going to get a girlfriend, right? The girls aren't going to dig me, all that kind of stuff. And I remember going to the grocery store. My mom would be like, look, go find something to do. Let me go grocery shopping. So I'd go over to the magazine section. And I remember seeing these muscle fitness magazines, right? And all these big guys like, Ronnie Coleman and Jay Cutler, they were competing at that time. And all these Dorian Yates and all these, like, not even just the Arnolds, that you see on TV. That was, those were Predator days, you know what I mean? Like, he was already kind of
Yeah.
into showbiz. This was real live bodybuilding. And I remember, like, man, if I could just get like that, all the chicks would dig me. I would feel better about myself. So I began to learn, right? And I began to be inquisitive about it. And I started reading these muscle fitness magazines. Didn't buy them. Never bought one until I had my own money, right? Like for my first job, I remember going and buying like 10 of these magazines. Like I spent $100 on magazines back in the day, right? And it was all these muscle fitness. So I learned their workouts. I learned the nutrition. I learned what was really kind of going on. And I learned that ho-hos and popsicles and Swiss cake rolls and bags of potato chips, right? And 2 liters of Mountain Dew. Yeah, except we were poor, so we didn't get the 2 liters of Mountain Dew. We got like the cheap alternative brand, right? Like that was like 75 cents a 2 liter, right? We were drinking junk, So I began to get in shape. And I remember going back to that same church camp the next summer with almost a six-pack, right? And I mean, my body type doesn't really get that lean, so I really had to, put a major effort on. And again, I'm a kid, so I would, once I struck my metabolism, when I started eating healthy, all of a sudden the girls were coming around, so it boosted my ego, right? But it made me be able to peel my shirt off. And what it was, and we're going to talk about this a little bit later, is my habits changed. My habits changed at a young age very quickly. And I learned that, wow, changing the way that I ate gave me what I wanted physically. And then I was able to do better all around. I became better in sports. I really started to get, athletically sound. My body, and brain connection was starting to get really, really good. I started to do wrestling, which is a one-on-one, probably the most individual, hardest sport that there is, being in martial arts, very, very tough. And then I began to be able to grow, into an individual. And thank God, because if I would have continued down that path, right, my brain would have never developed properly. My body would have never developed properly. I would have had all these horrible habits that who knows where I would have went, right? And I think that was just the beginning. So I got into exercise and fitness, and I studied it in school as well. And I ended up getting, to fast forward into my early 20s, I was able to get with a large health club chain. And this large health club chain, LA Fitness, it's one of the largest, that there is in the continental US. I started when they only had, I think, 37 LA Fitnesses, and now there's some 600-700, locations. But I started at the beginning, and I found out that I could really help people using the knowledge, using the willpower, using the things that I've gained personally. I could start to help others do that. And so I got into the fitness industry. And I spent 16 years in the fitness industry before I finally started to work on my mental state a great deal. I think that I went through some trials and tribulations. I was away from my family for almost, 2 out of the 4 years that my daughter was alive, or, after she was born. I was in corporate America. I was working 1 million hours. I had horrible habits. I was smoking cigarettes. I was drinking coffee, Red Bulls, Monster energy drinks, eat a little bit when I got home, and then started it all over again, right? Every single day. So, I really decided to take a step into the mental part of things. I knew that the physical body, I knew what I was doing. I had been studying it for my entire life. But then I started to connect the dots together. Then I started to take it from physical. Wow, if I can do the same thing that I did with my physical body, learn the dynamics, understand what it takes, get there, get to a peak performance, I could do that with my mental health as well. So I just engulfed into psychology and sociology, studied, extracted information, got great mentorship, invested a heck of a lot of money, resources, and time into developing my mental state. Well, that made me create what is known today as Provoke Coach. And that's where we provoke positive change and peak performance in people. And that's our mission. So the way that we do that is physical body, mental state, productivity. Okay? Physical and mental, we get you, into superior, the best version of you. We get you there, right? And it's a constant battle, right? And every day you need to be better than you were yesterday. So there's not an end result. There never is. You just become this version of yourself that's top level. Then you start taking how good you are, right, and how much better you are, and you apply that to actually performing more. That means providing the world with a better version as well. So what are you going to do with it? So now that Sam is, in the best physical shape, mental shape, everything, what is Sam going to now do? What are you going to provide the world? And that's what I mean about provoking positive change in people.
That's awesome.
So that's it. I mean, in a nutshell.
I think it's the story is interesting, and I think it's, I know for me, having gone through some of my own trials and tribulations to get to the point to where, Champions Way came about. It's interesting, if you don't mind me asking, like what were some like moments where you look back and you were like, I know you said you were like slugging Red Bulls, drinking coffee, smoking cigarettes. What was like the moment you were like, this has to change?
Well, I think that my purpose and intention changed. My identity changed. And I'll repeat that. My identity changed, right? So I grew up in blue collar America, right? Where you worked, you got an hourly rate, you got a pension, you got benefits, and you just did that every day. You woke up and you went, and however many hours you put in, you made, and then what did you do? You bought the white picket fence house, you got married, you bought vehicles, you had kids, dogs. It was like the American dream. So I chased it. I chased it. I mean, I went through a lot of crap growing up. And not to get into detail, but it was like, think about cops, meeting some wacky story about rural America, and it was just like, it was craziness growing up. What I buried all of that until my mid-30s, I buried all that with performance. I buried all that with being a professional. Like I told you, I was in corporate America, so my idea was to get in and move up through the ranks as fast as I could. Chase that dollar. I was that go-to VP guy, like, hey, Clinton, you want to move to Michigan? Or you want to move to here or there? You want to go to the other coast? Yeah, man, let's go. Selfishly, right? That's what I did. So what happened was my daughter was born. When my daughter was born, I said, wow, I can't do this. As a matter of fact, one day I came home on a Friday. I got into a big argument with the owner of the company, which anybody that knows me knows that I don't back down from anything. And I call shit how it really is. And I probably shouldn't have that day, but I got into an argument with the owner of the company, right? So here I am, this young man. We had just had my daughter. She was barely 8 months old, I think, at that time. And I walked in the door, and my wife greeted me, hey, how are you? Kiss. She goes, look. She goes, please, I need to go take a bath. I need 30 minutes. And I could tell that she was stressed, but I was too. And dumbass me, I said, well, hey, can you give me a minute? I need to unwind a little bit. I need to, just disengage. I need to, I need to have a beer. I need to chill. I need to relax. And I made the dumbass comment that said, what'd you do all day? And that was like a big mistake because my wife, she handed me my daughter and she took off for a couple days. And here I didn't know how to raise my daughter. And I came to this awakening of like, God damn, dude, my daughter's 8 months old and I can't even handle this. Like I'm calling my mom, my grandmother when she was alive, like, what do I do? How do I do this? And my wife wasn't doing it to be an asshole. My wife was doing it to prove a point. Right. Like, what did I do all day? I'm raising our daughter, right? I'm going through battles, right? As a new mother, things like postpartum, depression and anxiety, like all these things that I was so focused on being such a kick-ass VP, right, with a company and being Mr. Hotshot,
Yeah.
that I totally forgot about what was really important. Now, I've always been a great father. It's not about that, right? It's about what was I still carrying with me when I walked through the door. And my wife and I had a chat that Sunday night. I remember it to this day. She says, look, when you walk in those doors, you're not VP anymore. You're super dad. So just as super VP as you are at work, you're going to be super dad, super husband when you walk in here, and I'll be super wife when you come home with a beer waiting for you. Fair enough? And I'm just like,
yeah, it's a good proposition right there.
Done deal. But it woke me up, Sam. It was a provoking moment in my life that got me to get my head wrapped around. From that day forward, I went and I walked in, and it's almost, there was this naive thought pattern that was going through my head that just bursted that bubble. Because I walked through the doors of corporate America going, do these guys even give two shits about me? Or am I a number? Am I a number? Like, I was devastated. Like, you mean to tell me that I'm not ever, go back to six-pack abs, that confidence that I built up would carried me through to my mid-30s. Arrogance, cockiness, right? Now, it helped fuel me, and it helped the success, right? It helped all that, and I'm not a bad person, just aggressively arrogant in that way I was, and it stopped that bubble. And then it made me think like, shit, like this isn't what I really want. Had nothing to do with the money. I had got it all. I had spent it all. I'd got it again, spent it again, bought everything that I possibly could, the houses, the cars, the boats, motorcycles, the whole nine yards. And it didn't give me that gratification anymore.
Yeah.
Because I was helping people at scale. I was helping them get in shape, sure. Because I was managing people. Because I was provoking people.
It's interesting you kind of got to that point because I feel like it's common in a lot of people where we grow up, we achieve the idolized version of what we think we should be doing.
Exactly.
And then once we achieve all of that, it's almost like the most empty spot you've ever been because it's the realization that like what I was supposed to do, what I was told is the right thing, isn't even really what I want. And then you're left trying to figure out, well, shit, what do I want? And it's this feeling of like just emptiness and loneliness sometimes. And it's, your wife sounds like an amazing woman to be able to at least provide that proposition. So it's good that you had her in that corner. But man, that's some powerful stuff.
Well, that's the thing is like she's always supported me, right? Like, I mean, the more that I thought about it at the time, I was only thinking about one thing is like getting to the next position, getting to the next accolades, getting to the next title, right? Instead of like what she told me is like, look, you're going to be super dad or what? And that got me, that like kicked me right in the balls. And here's the thing about great wives. You're right. She put her entire career on hold to raise our daughter. Like I remember specifically having that conversation. I'm like, look, I can make just as much money, if not more, than two incomes combined here. We need to make sure that my daughter is raised properly. When we were alone as kids, right? Our parents were working and doing whatever else is. I was like, that's not happening, right? Like, we're going to do this. And she decided to put her, professional life on hold for me, right? And to raise our daughter, right? Which I'm glad that she did. Now she's, back in the workforce now, doing all that kind of stuff. But it was a rude awakening to me. And it was a provoking moment that shifted my focus to what I really, really wanted. Because you're right, it is lonely. People don't hear what goes on up here when you're trying to figure out, like, you're looking around like, what am I mean, here I am in my mid 30s going through this. I'm going, oh my God. Like I thought I was going to retire from all of this, like.
Yeah, it's interesting. And what goes on up here, it's so much different than what people see on the outside, right? You can see a six pack, you can see somebody overweight, you can see somebody
Exactly.
smoking a cigarette, you can see somebody stressed to the most part. But when people always think we're alone in our own thoughts and don't realize how much other people have these same thoughts. And I think that's
Oh
one of the
yeah.
reasons you're able to make the change with the amount of people that you do, is because you're able to connect with people at that level. And then that's where you start to provoke the change in these habits. Let me ask you, when you're going about working with people, what's, and I think we talk about, you and I had chatted about, the consistency with habits and the persistence through that. What are some of the things that you lean on as like, hey, this is what helped me through my tough times. Here's what can help you.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Well, I think understanding that we're a product of our habits, when we reverse engineer something, Sam, it's crazy to think about because everybody's in a certain position physically, mentally, spiritually, with their career. Everybody's at this crossroads. And you got there because of the decisions that you made, right?
Mm-hmm.
From what I like to call is like the life cycle. And I'll give you this example. Like, and I go through this in our program that talks about habits, is that the way it works at the beginning is it's all about consumption. Okay? So think if we think about it like physical, because that's what everybody can relate to. If you eat Mickey D's every day, okay, regardless of whatever bullshit YouTube things that you've seen, okay,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to turn into Mickey D's, meaning that, what's going to happen physically and even mentally, right? Your consumption, okay,
Mm-hmm.
creates feelings. Let's use social media as an example. If you're constantly consuming things on social media that have no relevance, right, are not a positive thing, like, let's say if you were just looking at, girls shaking their ass every day, all day, and that's all you're consuming through TikTok. Okay, well, guess what your brain is starting to be filled with? Like,
Yeah.
that's what you're starting to associate life to be about because you're bringing it in. Same with the older population. If anybody's listening right now, if you're above the age of 50, you watch the news. And you probably watch it a lot. And you're probably watching all the different, narratives that, in whatever your preference is, you're listening to that, you're consuming that, and that turns into feelings. Feelings turn into thoughts. Thoughts turn into actions. Actions turn into habits. Right? So again, consumption, what you consume, that means what you listen to, what you watch, what you eat, what you breathe, right? What you drink, people you hang out with, your environment, your social media, like the things that you like, the things that you share. Like, this is all relative. This is all creating this huge algorithm that's going on in your body and your brain and everything that is associated with your performance. Because again, those steps are consumption, right? They lead to feelings. Feelings lead to thoughts. Thoughts lead to actions. Actions lead to habits. Daily habits are what is going to mold you. And it's a guaranteed, proven strategy that if you did something long enough, okay, then your body or your brain or anything is going to develop that consistent, persistent,
Yeah.
right? The
Over and
motivation
over.
starts, then it becomes to where it's almost like an addict, right? You become addicted to what that particular habit does for you. And then all of a sudden you're hooked on it. Then you remove it and there's a problem.
It's so wild. You mentioned consumption, and I think this is an important point too. Is I went to a conference back in 2020, and one of the speakers was like, the best thing that you can do is when you go on your social media, unfollow people that don't provide value in your life.
Yes.
And I was like, it's such a simple concept. And I was like, wow, I feel like an
Yep.
idiot. I should have done this a long time ago. So what I did is, as soon as I left that, I unfollowed like old friends from high school that I haven't talked to in a decade. People that
Yep.
really just don't, and I only follow people that when I get on there, it's the right material that I'm going in. For me, it's science, it's health, it's self, personal growth. It's all of these things that bring me value so that, like you
Yes.
said, it transpires into the right feelings and emotions, the right thoughts, and then the right results.
Yeah.
And in today's world where it's the addiction to pull people in, like social media companies literally pay social engineers hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars to get your attention. That is where they make the
That's
money
right.
from.
Yeah.
And if you're on to something that's super powerful in that space, because it's habits is something like I feel like the concept of grit, determination, and struggle is non-existent in today's society.
Yeah.
I think people want it. I think it's a
Yeah.
forgotten art, though.
Well, and I think that, it's like the old saying that, if you want it, work for it. That's like a
Mm-hmm.
saying that we have around here in our household. I have a 13-year-old daughter. She definitely has not grown up the same way that I grew up. So her mom and I are doing our damnedest to teach her life lessons about how to work for things, to get things and accomplish things. Because kids are money pits. They're like your broke friend that just, just hangs around and eats a bunch and, like consumes a bunch of, everything, but it's kind of, I think you're right, Sam. It is a lost art, being able to grind it out. I have these conversations with my daughter that, she's like, hey, Dad, when was your first job and what'd you do? And I remember my first, job that wasn't on the farm, like the first time that was like somebody actually paid me money, not my
Yeah.
dad saying, get your ass over here, let's go bale hay, right? Because that's just, horrible. But, I was picking weeds on a muck field. And I told her, I was like, look, this is back when minimum wage was like $2.75 an hour. And she's like, what? She's like,
Yeah.
I
God, you're
wouldn't.
so old.
He's like, I would never work for that kind of money, and I'm thinking to myself, like, wow, here these kids. I was like, well, what type of money do you think that you should be earning? She's like, at least $20, $30 an hour. And I was like, you're 13. I was like, you can't clean your room. I was like, you're out of your mind, but it's just this concept, right? That these kids, they for some reason, and it's the world that we live in. I think you said it best. It's this instant gratification. It's this 3-second world that we live in. It's the grab attention. You're right. Millions of dollars go into advertising and marketing to pull you in 3 seconds.
Yeah.
And sometimes, how do they do it? If you're going back to consumption, what you told me was exactly what I did. And I did this 2 years ago. 2 years ago, there was a lot of people that I was associated with, and a lot of friends that had, I had grown up with in the fitness industry that had went off on their own and all that kind of stuff, and a lot of success, but their idea of success was much different than mine. And, flaunting Ferraris and Lambos and all this superficial shit means nothing. I mean, look, if I see you going to Hawaii and you taking your kids to Hawaii and all that hey, that I'm a little jealous of. Like, okay,
Yeah.
yep, I need to be there because those are experiences that you're giving, but I don't care about the materials. And what I started to do is the more that I followed is the more that I'm like, man, here I am liking their post, like, great job, good for you, I'm your biggest fan. And here I am getting drawn into this algorithm of where you think Ferraris are cool. And look, anybody that's got a Ferrari or Lambo, I love you. Hey, great, cool cars, right?
Yeah.
I'll drive it, yeah, awesome. But it's just not into my brain. Like, I want to provoke, a million people plus, millions, right? To provoke positive change. Nothing would make me happier than that right there. Not a Lambo. You know what I mean? Because it's just
Yeah.
not, my thing.
I think it's interesting. The what's I will say, like, even though like there's kind of this lost art of like grit and determination, I do feel like even over the past 10 years, what is more readily accepted as success, and you hit it as like going on vacation with your family, doing kind of more the more important things and not the materialistic stuff. I think where you're making a huge impact is kind of being able to blend that, where you have the more accepted value piece of family time, vacations, the things that are more valuable than materialistic. And then now it's how do you blend the grit and the determination to get to those values? Because like
Yes.
you said, like a lot of the young generation is coming up with where it's like, because I remember thinking like, oh, $1 million, that's not much money. Because
Yeah.
you watch like Sports Center, they're talking about signing $1 million contracts. You think it's just money being thrown until you start
Yep.
working. You're like your first paycheck, you're like $50. What?
Yeah, exactly.
And I think it's cool. So when you're working with people on the habit piece
Yes.
to build those values, is that something that like you pull from? Is that like, hey, what are your values? What are we going towards? Talking a little bit about that.
Yeah, kind of, right? Like, I mean, so in 2019, I stumbled across, just like everybody else, the pandemic, and it really kind of knocked people back a notch.
Mm-hmm.
And I had really kind of developed this like thing to where it's like, wow, I worked with a lot of these high level executives, helping them build their business from a sales and marketing capacity and scaling and how to find the right people, the whole 9 yards. We were doing that, but here the pandemic came, shut everybody down, right? And they were good businesses, so they were going to once open up again, but we didn't know when, we didn't know how, what was happening. But what I realized very quickly is that they were not good people physically, mentally. Their performance sucked. So they had a decent company, but there was something missing with these people because here the pandemic hit, and I'm like, well, shit, they're sweet. A couple days off, spent some time with the family. I'm thinking this is a positive,
So
right?
we
This is
flatten the
great.
curve.
Yeah, I mean, like, who cares? I don't really go anywhere anyways, but I was tired, right?
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I had been cranking hard for a year, so I was like, cool. And these people were like, well, how are you so happy about all this? You know what I mean? And I had gotten into a couple of them like, hey, let's talk about your physical health. I mean, clearly I can see over Zoom you're not in shape. I
Yeah.
mean, I can, clearly see that, without, kind of calling out their shit. But people started to get depressed. People started to have massive amounts of anxiety. People started to freak out. And people were really having a tough time. And I'm like, look, I want to help you, but there's some things that you need to do first that don't require me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they don't really require my expertise except for you got to follow some simple, basic guidelines in life. So after like kind of going over like what did I do on a regular basis for both my physical health, my mental state, productivity and follow through. So the productivity and follow through, I really absorbed that from everything I learned in corporate America about running business. Everything that I learned with my business clients, I kind of extracted those same principles that are for sales and marketing and how to attract attention and how to do all that kind of stuff with the productivity piece. But I'm like, well, there's no way that these people can get here without physical, right, transformation, without mental transformation. There's no way they'll be able to do that and handle that from that perspective. See, I was going backwards with these business, guys. I was starting with their business, rocking and rolling it, getting the sales up, the revenue, all the things that they wanted. Then it was kind of bleeding into other parts of their life. So I said, I got to flip the script. And I got to help out more than just the business people because there's a lot of people that are hurting out there. When the pandemic hit, I mean, there was all sorts of problems, depression, anxiety. I lost a relative, due to depression and suicide, so it really it kind of rocked my world a little bit. Like, how can I give more value at scale? How can I help a lot of people very, very quickly? So I started to put together these habits, these like, must do's in order to do it. And what I did is I went to town on the research. Like I put a lot of effort. I mean, think about like a senior thesis. Like I put together a course with all the research on all of these habits. And at the original, there was 18 habits that needed to be followed on a daily basis in order for you to go through. So some of those, like on a physical basis, are like intermittent fasting and full water fast every 25 days. Things like low sugar and or keto type nutrition, with the exception of a couple, modifications that I put in with it. On a mental state, I mean, golly, man, doing breathing exercises, doing meditation for 10 minutes a day. Like these are step-by-step habits for your physical body, your mental state, and then of course your productivity, because that was a big one for me. I wanted to take and plug that productivity into the mix. So I built these habits, and now there's 24 habits that we've added on, and it's a simple course really, where people go through, they learn the information, see how it applies, they look at all the benefits. Okay, I've listed all of them out. Like it's almost like, okay, like here's all the benefits. Like, where's there a negative here? Here's all the benefits. Where's the negative? And the idea is following through every day. Nobody's perfect. Okay, so
Right.
I've only had people, I've had one gentleman and his wife that have gone through 17 days at 100%. That's the best that I've ever gotten out of hundreds, almost thousands now, people that have went through the program. So we get it. Like, you're not going to be perfect. There's going to be things that you can't do on a daily basis or that just don't fit into the cards. But golly, man, if you follow these habits, and we did a 100-day program. So it's 100 days to a 100% transformation, and it's even a guarantee. It's a guarantee. I'll give you your money back.
That's awesome.
Right? Like, that's how serious I am. But if you think about it, Sam, I mean, think about it. 100 days. If I put somebody on a low sugar diet for 100 days, what do you think is going to happen to them?
Oh yeah.
Right? That's just the physical part. That's the sexy part. They'll lose weight.
Yeah.
Right? Now, what if I had you meditate 100 times for 10 minutes?
That's interesting, because I think it's meditation's super powerful. A lot of people don't do it.
Oh, it's huge. Breathing exercises, I think, are very underrated. Breathing exercises and meditation,
Yes.
very underrated.
You talk about the physical piece. I think from a recovery standpoint, the most underutilized tool for recovery is breathing after a workout.
Absolutely.
People don't because you go from this high sympathetic state where you're just high stress, and a lot of people just go right into the day, and then it's just a slow decline as opposed to be able to balance out those cortisol levels. And then
well, and people don't understand that it's about the pump too, right? Because when you're breathing in through your nose, it increases nitric oxide. We all, I mean, you and I know that. I mean, most people don't.
The guys love
right?
it.
But hello, gentlemen, if you're, anything over 25, if you want things to work properly, breathe through your nose and do some breathing exercises, right?
Have you tried the hostage tape for sleeping?
No, I haven't. I'm afraid I'm going to yank my mustache or beard off on the thing, to be honest with you. But I do a really good job. I mean, since I started and really researching breathing exercises, because the cool part about all this, Sam, is that I wasn't doing everything on this list, not consistently, right? Before I started the program. And then when I started the program, I'm like, well, frick, I definitely got to do all these things every single day, right? So that way I can figure out. And man, I tell you, breathing exercises, dude, the average human being is holding their breath up to like 28% of their lungs capacity and capability.
I believe it.
They're holding their breath. They're not breathing.
Especially in today's state where everybody's so stressed all the time. People don't realize that.
Yeah, they're wound tight. And then another thing on the physical aspect was stretching. I really, really was tight, super tight. I have a standing desk. I sit down a little bit more now because I found that the standing desk, I mean, my hamstrings were so goddamn tight from not sitting down, like that when I started to really get into flexibility a lot more in just 10 minutes. People don't understand what kind of impact that has on your body for 10 minutes. But even little things, Sam, like when you're talking about mental state, one of the things that is in the habit hack that these are some of the fun things are singing one song a day, right? Writing one
I get down with
page a
that.
day, right?
What was
Writing
the one you
page,
just said?
writing one page per day, like pen to paper. Reading one chapter a day in a book. Doesn't even matter what book. Dance one dance per day.
Who was it? I think it might have been Matthew McConaughey. He said, I think he tries to cry once every day.
Cry?
Might have been him. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
him or somebody else, but I know it was like a famous actor. It was essentially, I don't know if I think it was a laugh, a cry, and something else. But
Yeah.
essentially, he makes it a point to have some sort of emotions
Yep.
from a cry standpoint at least once a day, and it makes sense. Especially, I never understood that until as a father, it makes a world of difference because you see
Yeah.
things like I forget what I was doing. My daughter she's just about turned 2, and she picked up a hockey stick and started playing with the hockey and the ball, and like I'm a huge hockey player, and I was like, God,
Nice.
it gets you. So it's it's interesting. You do stretching, you do journaling, and a lot of people struggle with that too. And
Yep.
I think a lot of people are very judgmental of themselves and the thoughts and emotions that they have. And to be able
Well,
to,
and I think when you start to actually, because, and I don't know how many millions of synapses, fires, and thoughts that we have per day, but you think about it, all the Pulitzer Prize winners, the greatest artists in the world, both musical, painting. You think about if they never picked up the pen, right? If they never, what was going on in their brain, they never really put pen to paper. Now, what that does for your mental state is it allows release. So you were talking about crying, you're right. I mean, crying and laughing both release so much serotonin and dopamine into your bloodstream. It's ridiculous. It's a reset. I think that, and especially for guys, it's tough because guys have a really hard time with, getting in touch with their emotional side. Now, since I've been in touch with my emotional side, I mean, I can't really go through America's Got Talent if they're showing me some like sad story prior to them singing, and then when they start singing, I'm like, oh shit, they got me, right? Like, and I get my emotions from my mother, so I am an emotional guy anyways.
yeah.
But you're right. There's a release that you get from a good cry or even a good laugh, and it's almost like grounding, which is another one of our habits. You're walking around fully charged, and if there's no release, you're going to release when you're least expecting it, right? And it's not going to go well, especially for men, especially for men.
Yeah, that or it manifests itself as some sort of disease or issue, health problem down the road.
Or a habit, right? You start a bad habit,
Yep.
Because you're trying to release that charge.
Yeah, and it's back to the laughing and crying. I've read it's the only two things that will actually put your brain waves and your heart in rhythm with each other, and it makes sense. You referenced the dopamine, the serotonin, all of it. It makes absolute sense. But it's I think men and emotions is something that, because we're taught at a very young age how to compartmentalize our emotions and bottle them up and push them away. Like you said, you were from you took everything and just applied it to the professional side until one day just life smacked you, and like you were like, wow, like this, I have to. You referenced changing your identity and having that shift for yourself. That's how powerful that stuff can be, and it's hard when you go to write things. I was talking to a gentleman yesterday, And I was like, because he's going through some tough spot in his life, and I said, just journal, man. Like, don't. I think what a lot of people forget is that there's multiple personalities to every person, right? There's the dad
Yeah.
version of us, there's the work version of us, there's the
Yep.
husband version, right?
Yep.
And then all of those things across the board, but people don't. They think of like multiple personalities as a problem, but it's like that's how you function in life.
Yeah.
Like if dad version of you was working, that you wouldn't always. Could you have some success? Yeah, because you're a good dude.
Yeah.
Like there's certain things that there's that bend to it. You know what I mean? So
Well, and it's like
dude,
business
it's
owners.
awesome work, man. It's powerful stuff.
Well, it's like business owners that wear multiple hats in their business, right? Like business owners will wear multiple hats. They're the marketing person. They put a different hat on. They're the closer, different hat on. It's this.
Yes.
We have different identities, I think, in life. We have what people perceive us to be, what we think people perceive us to be, and then who we really are.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that you know, there's parts of you that you allow others to see, okay? And I think that if we're all being honest, everybody does this, right? Like there's, you know, like you were talking about growing up, you know, from a very young age, we were, you know, at least I wasn't really taught how to manage my feelings and emotions correctly, especially if it was bad, because I associated bad with fist fights and cops called and, you know, real scary shit. So then what we do is, you know, I buried it until I was in my mid-30s, and it started to creep up to where I was having a real tough time controlling my emotions and saying like, holy shit, this identity of me being in corporate America and me being this, I thought, icon of professionalism and sales and this, you know, guru shit ended very rapidly to where I was like, holy shit, you're just a number, dude. Like, you're not as cool as you think you are, you know? And I had a real tough time with that emotionally at that point in my life. And I mean, my wife will tell you, like, I was struggling, like really, really struggling, because I didn't know what I didn't know what I was supposed to do, what I was meant to do. I knew what I wanted to do, you know? I mean, I went through some tough financial times because, you know, clearly, you know, all that changed very rapidly and quickly. And I was just like, my God, what am I going to really do? And that's when, you know, the word provoke comes up as a kind of a negative at times. But where I got it from is growing up on a farm, you know, there's a rooster that gets up every morning and provokes people to get their ass moving.
Yeah, I love it.
Right? And that's where I got the idea of this rooster, you know, because I was like, wow, you know, that's kind of me. You know, it's kind of my hairstyle. I mean, that's kind of like how I manage. That's how I'm, you know, that's how I'm a parent, right? That's how I parent my daughter. Like, is this, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go. But I give everybody a fighting chance. See, the idea here is that's not just go, go, go. It's do the things daily that you know are going to give you the result in the long run. See, people want this instant gratification. They want things to happen right now. That's not how habits work. Even like coke heads don't get hooked their first time, and you know, like they go. You understand? Like it's just
that's a great analogy, man.
It is. I mean, look, it's you got to do it, and you got to keep doing it. You got to keep doing it. You got to keep doing it if you really want to get the results that you really want to get.
Yep.
You know, we got to be not fixated with the right now. Right now, it's going to suck. Right now, it's going to hurt. Right now, it's going to be horrible. Right now, it's going to seem like it's the end of the world. Right now, it's going to seem like there's no hope. But you fast forward 100 days from now, you know, 6 months from now, a year down the line, and where you really could be. Because I'll give you an example. I was talking with a gentleman the other day, and he says that he's an idiot. Okay? Mm-hmm. He's, you know, no formal education, moved up through his company through sales and marketing and just, you know. But he had a real tough time in high school, barely graduated. As a matter of fact, I think he got his GED later on. But it was a real struggle for him. Just didn't grow up reading books, didn't understand, didn't do anything like that. he's like, Clinton, I've never read a book before. He's like, but I've read 6 books in 100 days because you make me read a chapter every single day. He's like, I literally now have a library card for the first time in my life, and I'm actually going to the library. He goes, Amazon is not dropping off packages, they're dropping off books, like how they were designed to do.
Yeah, the old school days.
He's like, this is ridiculous. He and one of the things that I says, well, great. I said, how does that make you feel? He's like, well, first of all, he goes, you got to understand that I'm in sales, and a part of my, positioning is being able to speak to people. He goes, you realize how much more I'm able to speak on, and how much more like storytelling I'm able to do, and I'm able to associate more things. He goes, I've never been to California. He goes, but I just read a book about a guy that drove around all over California. And he goes, I know every freaking town, it seems like, in California. He goes, you know how many sales calls that I've been on to where I can associate, oh, you're in San Bernardino? Oh my God, I know exactly where that's at. You ever been to the restaurant here? He goes, I've never been there. He goes, but I'm going back to what I've been reading about this guy and his story about traveling around California and eating at different places and all that kind of stuff. He goes, I got the sale like that. He goes, it was ridiculous. The guy thought we were best friends. And I'm thinking to myself, like, wow, what about the people that are writing a page a day? That means that at the end of the 100 days, they have 100 pages that they've written. About what? Those could be songs. Those could be stories. Yeah. Those could be blockbusters. We don't know what is, what we're really capable of until you add fuel to the fire. So my program's got a scorecard. I make sure that people do it every day to where they have to actually fill out, which is really cool. I'm doing an AM scorecard and a PM scorecard coming up. Yeah. Oh, well, it's 2 smaller increments that allow for better results.
Right. Simplicity on it. Breaks it down.
Oh yeah, it has to. If you're not held accountable, people don't do things on their own.
I think
they slack.
Yeah, I think what's powerful too is what you're doing is you're building momentum.
Well, selfishly, Sam, I thought, when I first introduced my high ticket coaching program, I wanted it to be a prerequisite that the people went through the habit hack for 100 days before qualifying to work with me. And I was doing 2 things. Number one, helping people, of course, but I was also pre-qualifying everybody that was set to work with me in my high ticket coaching program, which is a varsity program. It's definitely more in depth. It's like the habit hack on steroids, good ones at that, right? So it's really, more so building the next stage. But selfishly, I did it to qualify people because here's the thing. I've had people start my program and not finish. Yes. I've given them their money back because if you're not really going to follow through and do this for you, I don't need your money. It's not that important to me. I'm more interested in helping you. I'm more interested in, on day 101, you calling me up being like, check this out, right? Because that's really what it's all about.
That's awesome, man. You're doing powerful stuff. And I think the habits too is it's not like, because a lot of people will be like, oh, that 24 habits, but it's like it's not very time consuming things that you're doing.
No, it's not at all. And our clients, they put things together in one, right? So they bundle is what we call it. So as an example, one of our habits is to play a game. Okay? To play an actual like physical, either you're playing Monopoly, you're playing pickleball. Well, my wife and I play tennis. Well, I try to. She's actually good. But I use this, right, for a couple different things. Number one, I know that I'm getting no less than 30 minutes of cardiovascular exercise. I'm playing a game, right? I'm spending time with my wife, okay? Now, playing a game with somebody, and I mean playing a game to win, okay? And I want to be clear with that.
Yeah, you told me about this, yeah.
Like, I am, yeah, gonna be like smack talking my wife, hitting the ball at her. Like, you wouldn't believe about how less bickering in fights that we get because it's more aggressive smack talking. I'm gonna crush you. Your score sucks, or or blatantly just being like, come on, that was out, and lying to her, having her catch you in a lie. She know, oh, I know you're lying. I know. We've been married for 20 years. I know that hit the line, right? But bundling these things together. Look, I just knocked out like 4 habits,
Yeah.
like all in one go. Breathing exercises and meditation, those usually go hand in hand with me, and stretching.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I try to finish it off with a good stretch, or start it with a good stretch for 10 minutes, then hit my 10 minutes of meditation, 10 minutes of breathing exercises, and then boom, I'm back ready to rock and roll. But look what I did. I bundled everything together all at once to be able to finish those.
That's awesome. That's powerful. And I think when you're again, it's like and this is, and we can finish off on this note because I think this is probably the most important thing for a lot of people is how to get started. Like, so many people struggle with just that first initial push. You know what I mean? And like, it's common. It's a human characteristic to come up with any excuse to avoid doing something they feel might be uncomfortable. And they use all tons of safe problems and reasons and things like that. But in reality, it's like the stuff you're looking for, like I said, and you just went over, is it's not long. Even if you're working 12-hour days, these are things that like you can do. I remember working in car sales 12 hours a day. And even like the 1 or 2 days off that I had off, like even during those days, you can still find time to do the things. So what's your go-to? Like when somebody's like not really, they want to get started, they come with excuses, what would you recommend in those situations, or what do you do?
So it's real simple. I ask them to take a piece of paper out. Have you in car sales and being in sales as long as you have, you probably know the Benjamin Franklin close, right?
I might have done it, but you.
So
this
Benjamin
is your detail speaking. You know all of these names. I don't know them. I just sometimes come across these things and I end up doing
once I go through it, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about, right? So Benjamin Franklin was notorious for writing down a pros and cons list. Whenever he was faced with a large decision of what he needed to do to pivot him forward, he would write down on one side of the paper all the pros, and then on one side of the paper all the cons, right? Yep. And then he would make an educated decision based on the number of pros and do they relate to the cons? Is it going to outweigh the other, right? So it's this game of what's on the scale.
Yeah.
So what I ask my clients to do is do it a little bit different, okay? I want you to write down all the great things that you know will happen when you associate, whatever it is you're looking to do, right? So all the good things, like if you, like working out as an example, struggle with motivation to do physical activity. Okay, not a problem. Write down on one side of the paper everything that is going to happen good. All the good stuff. What's going to happen? Look better, feel better, more confident, sexier. Might have more sex with my wife or husband, because I'm in better shape. I might be able, whatever. You're going on a list. Then on the other side of the paper, I want you to write down what happens if I don't. What's going to happen if I don't? Right?
Powerful.
No sex, right? Mm-hmm. No hanging out with my wife, right? Bad problems coming into my physical body, meaning high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, sensitivity of insulin. Go down. That's your answer. If that's not motivating enough for you, I don't know really what else you need besides a provoking moment in your life to force it. Because a lot of times provoking moments are not ones that are the most comfortable. So you have your choice. You can either positively say, look, I'm going to go after this and I'm going to get it, right? Meaning you're on the offense. or you stay on the defense, which is what most people do, Sam. They take things as they're coming, then they make decisions. Well, if you want to wait until the doctor says you're obese, you're not a beast, you're obese, right? When your doctor says that and he says that we got to put you on medication, you know, if that's your rock bottom or provoking moment, or somebody dies that's close to you, or something happens that is out of your control. Because here's the thing, Sam, you know as well as I do, we're motivated by either pain or pleasure. Mm-hmm. It's just your choice on how you want to be motivated. Do you want to be crossing the finish line being like, fuck yeah, I got it done, I did it, right? Or, you know, do you want to be watching people cross the finish line and being like, fuck, I should have done it? You know, I choose the offense now, you know, instead of being that defensive player.
Yeah. Regret's such a powerful thing, too. And I think that's, for me, it's a motivator for a lot of things. It's, you know, you only got one go through on this. So it's, you look back, and I think we get lost in a lot of the day-to-day.
Sure.
What's, you know, you mentioned it, too. Like, when you were going to work, wake up, go to work, come home, wake up, go to work. And you're in the grind, and it's, you know, people go on vacations the first time sometimes for like weeks or months that they actually just rip themselves out and are able to look at things, and then you go back into it. So it's like, for me, it was always, if I don't do something, what happens? How's that going to turn out in 10, 15 years? And it's powerful, man, because it's what's your driver, what's going to cause you to take action.
Yeah. And it's uncomfortable sometimes, but, you know, being uncomfortable and having imposed demand is the only way for things to grow.
Yeah. I always say you can struggle to grow, or you can struggle to survive. What do you want?
Pick your struggle.
Yeah, that's really what it is. But yeah, dude, this was fun, man. We'll have to do this again sometime.
Oh, heck yeah. Heck yeah. Well, I'll have you on my podcast next.
Hey.
You know, and then we'll get together and we'll definitely tear it up.
Yeah.
Big time, man.
Yeah, we'll do this again. Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate your time. This was awesome.
Yep.
And it brought a lot of value, and you're doing some awesome stuff, man.
Thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate you.
Yeah, no problem.